We have to talk about Anthropic. Anthropic, as you know, is the number two, just only to OpenAI. Anthropic has had some huge stuff coming out of late, especially. Jaden, I don't know if you want to dive in. Some of the stuff that I was reading, and I don't know how much of this stuff you've seen as well, but just kind of like in no particular order, one of the really cool things is this whole, what's it called? Tool use for their AI assistant, which is this whole extracting structured data from unstructured text, stuff like that. That looks like awesome. If you have something there, I want to hear it from you, Jaden. But the other things I wanted to like at least touch on, because this is an Anthropic episode, Jan Leakey, who left OpenAI over safety concerns, actually posted about it on Twitter, which probably meant that he lost a ton of value potentially from OpenAI. And we're thinking like, wow, that seems kind of like a weird move, has joined Anthropic. And then the other thing, which we didn't really get to last week, is this huge thing, which is we can no longer really say that these LLMs are black boxes. Nobody knows what's happening. Anthropic essentially cracked it open and put a microscope to it and is actually seeing now how it works. We don't have to get into the tech of it, but just the fact that they're doing that, Anthropic leading the way with safety, no question, but also doing some phenomenal stuff to drive value. Jaden, where do we even dive in here? Your choice.
I know. There's so much happening at Anthropic. I'm super excited about the tools. We'll talk about that in a sec. But what I wanted to talk about real quick, because you mentioned, and I think it might be a misconception a lot of people have, but there was a recent update on it, is OpenAI, and they're like, essentially, if you leave the company and you have any disparaging remarks, they had a clause, a clawback clause, where your stock options, you would lose your stock options. Anyways, so Sam Altman kind of got roasted on that, and he came out and said that he's going to rescind that for new people that won't apply. For old people, they can contact him, and he can remove it from their contracts. So you can. So I think that's probably why we're starting to see some of the safety folks. I mean, it's a pretty scathing rebuke if the entire safety team leaves. Like that in and of itself is a message. But now they're actually allowed to talk about it, so they can kind of roast him about it or whatever, OpenAI, which I think is healthy, because OpenAI obviously does take criticism. When they have a clause that bans criticism, it's not great. So Sam Altman, after hearing about that, he obviously was. People are like, yeah, he acts like he didn't know it existed, like it had to be made and it had to be put in there, and his lawyers would have told him about it. It's not like a standard thing everyone's got. So in any case, after it became a big issue, he said like, this is the most embarrassed I've ever been while running a company about that clause. We're going to remove it, whatever. So he kind of did the apology tour on it. So cool. Awesome. But anyways, it's a misconception some people have. It's no longer in effect. So you can disparage OpenAI, criticize them, and keep your stock options, essentially.
Help correction.
So yeah, anyways, I think it's really interesting and important because, like you mentioned, the safety team over Anthropic is doing some really exciting, interesting stuff. We have some of the big people from OpenAI moving over there, cracking open the black box, talking about what's inside. I think that Anthropic is responsible for some really impressive innovations at the very beginning with their constitutional AI model, where it outlined the main important things that the model was like sticking to. I really like that. I really like having that out in the open. I wish more models would do that. And now they have, kind of getting into how these AI models work and looking at them. So I think they're doing a lot of really interesting things from a safety perspective, and I'm super excited about that.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. I think Anthropic will always be known as this. I think Anthropic is sort of like only kind of shoring up their bona fides around this, but now also sort of like in this, what's it called again? This tool use. It's this whole thing of sort of like how they're becoming not just like multimodal, but really useful in such a way that you can sort of start to see why businesses would start to adopt it, and maybe even why they would choose Claude over like an OpenAI. And this is just a huge capacity. I mean, like, answering questions by searching databases, using web APIs, etc. Like, I feel like having that sort of capability and prioritizing security and data privacy is just awesome. I don't know if you've sort of read much about that capability yet.
I think the tools thing's cool. So it's called tool use. But essentially what you can do is you can create an API and tie it to your Claude account. So you can make an API into your own company's data is one way. But it's for developers, and they can essentially use it in any Anthropic messaging kind of thing, so pretty much Claude, and it's on Amazon Bedrock, Google Vertex AI, which are two big places that developers are deploying AI models. I think this is exciting because it's essentially allowing you to link together inside of Anthropic or inside of Claude, the chat Claude, accessing like data, accessing external like data sets and information, an API, right? So you're like pulling in data. I think this is amazing, and I think OpenAI sort of tried to do this with their plugins that just didn't like really find product market fit, and I think those are probably discontinued at this point. So I think that was kind of the idea. It seems like Anthropic's doing this in a little bit more of a developer way, less of like a user way, although they might make it more user facing as more developers add on. It's almost like the first step to making plugins pretty much. So I think this is really exciting because we're starting to see Anthropic go the way of OpenAI, where they're integrating with other software. And that's really where it becomes very useful. People have talked a lot about how over the last year or two, we went through this kind of foundational model phase, and now we're moving into the application layer. So this is where I'm focused on with AI Box, really connecting these foundational models and all AI models with software tools, having APIs and integrations and connecting stuff, because I believe that there is a lot of the missing efficiency right now, or automation, is kind of in connecting those, becoming a glue layer, and really focusing on the application layer. So that's what I'm excited about, and I think that they have the right vision here with this.
I totally agree. And I also think that, just last thing on this, I just think that companies more and more, as they start to adopt, and adoption is going to be rolling out more, they're going to be looking for companies that either they really, really trust, sort of like an AWS, a Google, or a Microsoft, or they're going to be looking for companies like how Volvo is with cars, right? I mean, it's like, which company do I know that they have put this at the forefront? So I think that in that regard, especially, it could really be something that Anthropic can lead the way on and actually sort of surpass OpenAI for companies that, like, they want a great model, but security is huge. And Anthropic is, I think, proving this over and over again. I think that's really exciting for the company, and the Claude model is great. Folks, there's so much to talk about with Anthropic. If you haven't tried Claude, do try it out for sure. Make sure you just test it out, especially with writing. It's incredible with mimicking writing. But otherwise, listen, if you've enjoyed this podcast, we always say, if you wouldn't mind leaving a rating and review, it would be phenomenal. Jaden and I are doing this push toward 100. It can only be done with you. So if you want to sort of like join on that, we'd always be grateful. But we're going to be here no matter what. Thank you guys for joining us. Have a great rest of your day.